This exploit is one of the best ones I have seen in a long time, and it will make you tons of golden reputation. Before we get started, I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers, and if you could help me get there, that would mean a lot to me. And thank you so much for watching. I also, real quick before we get started, want to give credit to this YouTube channel, as part of this exploit's mechanics and part of the things that I used to derive this exploit was from one of this channel's videos. So if you're wondering where I got some of it from, that's where I got it. So how can you use an almost forgotten about thing in Sea of Thieves to make millions of gold and tons of levels in reputation? Well, first you're going to need two people. So you either need to find a friend or find someone in the comments below to run this exploit with you. Once you have obtained a second person, you will need to head to Galleon's Grave Outpost. You can do this at other outposts, so stick around and I will explain that later, but for right now, this is going to be the best one to do it at. So you head to Galleon's Grave Outpost, and once you're there, you need to put up the Merchant Emissary flag. Once you have the flag up, you have to follow the next steps very, very carefully, because if you mess it up, you're going to have to restart this whole thing. Have one crewmate. In this case, this person's going to be me, and we're going to call that person the buyer. The buyer has to access the Merchant Alliance person's representative's inventory, and they need to go to the one that's for commodities. You need to access this inventory from as far away as possible, so try and get right on the line of where you can see the prompt to access the inventory and where you can't, and once you're right on the edge, I mean like right as close as you can get, go into the commodity inventory. This is where the second person comes in. The second person we're going to call the bomber. Have the bomber, your partner, throw a blunder bomb at you while you are in the commodity inventory, and they need to throw the blunder bomb in a way that's going to push you even farther from the Merchant Alliance person and outside of their inventory range. So once they throw it on your screen, you're not going to move, but on their screen, you will move into the server, which is the really important one. You will also move. The person responsible for the blunder bombs, the bomber, will then come up next to you and make sure that you're out of the range of the merchant. So you can't see into their inventory. You shouldn't be able to access their inventory, but obviously from your point of view, you are still in their inventory. Like I said, do this by just standing right next to you and make sure that you're not close enough to access it. Once you are out of the inventory range, you need to begin buying all of the commodities that are in surplus. In this case, at Galleon's Grave Outpost, that should be gemstones. So this is the one that there's a ton of if you're doing it at other outposts, which I'll explain later. And just one thing to note, you cannot buy all of them. You need to buy almost all of them. So there should be 10 available for purchase. You need to buy 9, but you need to leave one of the one that's in supply not bought. And once you have bought 9 of them, the bomber's going to come back. This is where they're stayed. So you're going to just stay in that inventory. You should see these check marks over all of them instead of the chains, which say that you can't buy them again. And the bomber is going to need to take all of them from the merchant and put them onto the ship. So they're going to take all of them from the merchant, put all of them onto the ship. And at this point, you as the buyer can leave the merchant's inventory. Do not leave until those previous steps are done. The bomber needs to put everything on the ship, get it away from you before you even leave the inventory. Now the buyer should be able to go back into the merchant's inventory. And once again, you need to be right on the edge of the prompt zone like you were before. You should be able to see that you can now buy all of the commodities again, which is not supposed to happen. You're supposed to only be able to buy 10 in surplus from each outpost, which limits how much profit you can quickly make from this. But before you buy them again, make sure to have the bomber push away the buyer from the Merchant Alliance representative and make sure that they're out of range again. You need to communicate this very well with your team, and you need to get into the habit of doing this. Make sure that they check every time before you start buying. You can then buy your 9 surplus commodities again and make sure not to buy that last one, and I'll explain why later. The bomber can then once again take them from the merchant and put them on the ship, and remember, do not leave the inventory before all of the commodities are taken. I also want to mention that the bomber shouldn't be taking any of the crates of commodities until you've purchased all 9. So once you've purchased all 9, tell them you can start taking them, and then they will tell you that all of them are on the ship and you can leave the inventory. You also at that point need to eat because you're probably pretty damaged and you don't want to die during this, as that could mess it up. You can rinse and repeat this as long as you keep doing it right, as many times as you would like, or as many blunder bombs as you have, and then you need to head to the outpost that has a shortage of the commodity that you have been buying. In this case, that is Ancient Spire, and you need to go there and sell all of them. However, this exploit almost isn't even worth doing unless you know these extra tips that I'm about to give you. Do not do this unless you are already Emissary Grade 5. I know I said at the beginning to put up the Emissary flag, and that is absolutely necessary, but this is really not worth it unless you're Emissary Grade 5. In order to accomplish this, me and my friend did an Ashen Lost shipment first, and this is really convenient as it has a pretty good chance to bring you to Galleon's Grave Outpost where you can then go ahead and start. But what if it doesn't bring you to Galleon's Grave Outpost? Well, that brings me on to tip number 2. If you need to get to Galleon's Grave Outpost, maybe your Ashen Lost shipment ends somewhere else, or you're already grade 5, you didn't do an Ashen Lost shipment, you did something else, and you just need to get up there, you can go ahead and vote to dive for the Revenge of the Morning Star Talltale in the Shores of Gold Talltale section. This will bring you to Daggertooth Outpost, which is only 2 islands away, and you can also buy more supplies from Daggertooth to help you do the exploit, so it's a pretty good thing to do anyways. And once you are there, just go ahead and cancel the Talltale and go to Galleon's Grave. But what if you don't want to go to Galleon's Grave? Maybe you see that there's a ship there, there's a fight there, there's a world event too close, or you just have some other reason you don't want to go there. Well, you can actually, like I said earlier, do this exploit at any outpost. However, you just have to understand how the commodity trading works. If you check this book at every outpost near the Merchant Alliance trader, it will tell you which outpost has what commodity in surplus and which ones are buying the shortages. That way you know where to buy them at and where to go to sell them at afterwards. But gemstones just happen to be the best one, and as far as I know, they don't rotate, so those are always going to be at Galleon's Grave, and they should always sell to Ancient Spire, but check the book beforehand just in case I'm wrong about that. So now there's only really one thing holding you back. You need more Blunder Bombs if you want to do this, and you need food for the buyer as well, as they're going to take a lot of damage during this. Tip number 4 is to try and find as many Blunder Bombs as possible before even thinking about heading to the outpost, and also get a ton of food. That way you don't have to stop in the middle and go do something else. It'll just mess up your flow, it'll mess up your productivity and how efficiently you're doing it. So just make sure you have everything ready before the exploit as part of your setup. You can buy as much as you want from different outposts, so maybe even just take a lap around the map, buy Blunder Bombs, buy food, buy the food crates from the Merchant Alliance, and just really stock up before you want to start this, especially if you plan on doing this for a while. Also, as the buyer, make sure that you are eating food between buys, as you can die from the Blunder Bombs if you don't, and that could really mess up the exploit. And tip number 5, just make sure to only buy 9 of the 10 commodities. But why only buy 9 of them? Well, it was causing problems with being able to grab all the commodities, and buying all 10 can cause you to have to stop and restart, which is kind of annoying and counterintuitive to doing an exploit. You can buy all 10 to speed it up, but just be aware of the risk and that it was causing problems. We would get down to the last one and not be able to buy it, and we found that buying 9 got rid of this risk completely for us. So you can buy 10, just be aware of what that might do to you and what it might do to your efficiency. Before I get into how much this exploit can actually generate in terms of gold and reputation, I'm going to show you a demo of me and my friend doing it so you can see this happen in real time, the challenges that come with it, and how much we were able to personally profit from it. And then after that, I will show you guys how much we could have made per hour and how much you guys could make per hour if you were perfect, and all of the profit statistics. As I mentioned earlier, we started our run with an Ashen Loot shipment, so that way we'd be able to get to Emissary Grade 5 really quickly, and we'd be able to sell at maximum profit. Once at Emissary Grade 5, we ended up at Plunder Outpost, and we bought supplies from Plunder Outpost, and then used the Revenge of the Morningstar Talltale to get to Daggertooth Outpost. At Daggertooth Outpost, we also went ahead and bought even more Blunder Bombs and food, and then we headed to Galleon's Grave Outpost. But this is where we ran into our first PvP problems, and I've been noticing a lot of these trying to do exploits since they've upped the amount of ships in each session, and since more players have started joining the game, there's a lot of traffic on these servers, so you may run into this as well. There was nothing we could do. We had to sink this galleon at Galleon's Grave Outpost, or else we would not be able to use this outpost safely, and we could lose our Emissary Grade 5. I really also did not feel like doing ship combat against a galleon, and we couldn't tell from far away if they had just pulled up there or if they were a fresh spawn, so I had a completely different idea. Just south of where we were already sailing, there was a nearby skeleton fort, and we headed to it and filled our rowboat with kegs, and we just went ahead and rowed it up to the galleon. It ended up being a fresh spawn, which kind of sucks for them, and these guys sunk really fast, and after killing their back spawn, which I will say he was not happy.
Can't aim for shit, brother. The hell you on?
We could dock up and start the exploit, and hopefully they just wouldn't come back. We had 16 Blunder Bombs, which wasn't a ton. You can definitely get way more than that, but it was plenty for testing and demoing this exploit for profit. We got to work and we spent about 40 minutes doing the exploit, which led to us getting about 140 to 150 commodities, but we didn't know exactly. We then set sail to Ancient Spire, and everything was going well until a brigantine came out of absolutely nowhere while we were worried about something else, which was a sloop camping on top of the outpost. We used more kegs to blow up the brigantine by sailing by a skeleton fort and catching them off guard.
Okay,
He's right, he's right. He's gonna blow up our ship, he's gonna blow up our ship.
And while they were repairing, we just went into the shroud and never saw them again. And then we sunk the people at Ancient Spire Outpost, as once again, I didn't care if they were friendly, fresh spawn, didn't care what they were. We just needed to be safe, not lose our emissary, and not lose our commodities. We then spent a few minutes selling all of the commodities and amassing 350k gold and 7 levels of reputation for Merchant Alliance, which was pretty insane. But how much could you make without all this PvP and other stuff that got in our way? Well, we got 350k gold and 7 levels of reputation in about 40 minutes, which means that on average per hour, if you were doing the same thing that we did, you had those same interruptions and stuff, but you still had a pretty successful session, you should be getting about 525k gold per hour and 10 levels of reputation per hour. That's of course depending on your reputation level, and like I said, how your session goes. That was our average session. That doesn't mean it's going to be yours. Yours could be way better or way worse. That's just the way the seas go. But without all this interruption, you could probably get close to a max of about 700k gold and about 15 levels of reputation per hour. That's with the perfect crew in the perfect session. That's not going to happen for everybody. That's probably not going to happen for me, but I'm sure there are some crews out there that are going to get close to that. But you could do even better with this exploit. If it survives until the upcoming community weekend, we could see things like 2.5x multipliers and literally millions per hour, as well as tens of levels per hour. And it may get patched before then, but either way, I highly suggest doing it today and selling it during the gold rush hours, as you could do that right now and again get close to probably 700,000 to a million per hour, which is, we've had exploits like this before, but it's been a long time. And there's also other events like Golden Glory weekends that you could make even more profit for then. If you guys think that I missed anything about this exploit, anything that I don't know, or you guys know of any other exploit that I haven't covered, please be sure to let me know in the comments below, and also check the description of this video, as I normally update them to tell you if this has been patched or not. So if you guys want to know if this has been patched, you can ask and I will respond, but you can also check the description just to be sure, and it should tell you if it's been patched or not. So that way you guys can know if this still works or not. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I'm currently trying to reach 10,000 subscribers, and if you guys could help me get there, that would mean so much to me. Either way, thank you guys so much for watching. I do truly hope that you enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.